Have you ever had a sensitive conversation with someone, and in the middle of that conversation, they aren't really looking at you any longer? I'm Heather Grzych, and this is the Wisdom of the Body podcast. This podcast explores the idea of body intelligence as the real key to learning the knowledge of life, or what we call Ayurveda in the ancient language of Sanskrit. We do that by connecting with today's creative leaders and experts who will help you listen to your body, trust your gut, and live in deeper harmony with nature. Come join me as we unlock the golden door to clear, direct perception and become very deep listeners. You can find the Wisdom of the Body podcast on Apple, Spotify, and Stitcher. You can also follow us by joining my email at heathergrish.com or on Instagram at heathergrish. I know you're going to love this podcast, so take a second right now to subscribe. What is a healthy relationship? First of all, I'm not a relationship coach, and frankly, I've had my share of troubles with relationships throughout the years, but there are a few things that I've learned that I'd like to share with you today. I've learned through my own experiences with lots of failed relationships. I've learned from my body. I've learned from my work with hundreds of clients in relationships over the last 10 plus years, many of whom wonder if their partner's actually somehow impacting their health. For example, one client told me the story of how she was having an affair with a colleague while she was also trying to get pregnant with her husband. She couldn't even see that the two situations were at odds with each other. It was almost like her mind and her body couldn't connect the dots. Well, she ended up getting caught having an affair, and she and her husband did a lot of processing together to understand where that break in integrity came from for her. After going through the turmoil of the situation, they actually reconciled their marriage and ended up getting pregnant and having a child soon afterwards. It's really amazing the things that people can get through together when they're really committed. But in that situation, she kept thinking her husband was the problem. You know, frankly, we don't mean to screw things up, but sometimes we do. I've often thought of writing a letter of forgiveness to all my former lovers. And if any of you are listening right now, please accept my apology, for I know not what I did then. At the time, even though I may have hurt you, and I'll forgive you too, because I'm sure that there were things that you probably regret as well. I once got a tattoo shortly after a breakup. I'm not sure that's the best time to get a tattoo, by the way, but I did. I got this tattoo to remind me that I never wanted to need a man any longer. I wanted to get rid of that needing so badly because I had gotten so attached to someone once. So attached that it was actually bad for my health. My intense desire and attachment clouded my reason and drove me to make really, really, really poor decisions. And I likely got so attached to this person because I was so deeply lonely and afraid to be on my own. And that was a defense mechanism I developed because I felt lonely a lot growing up. The foods I ate and the way I lived my life actually helped create states of imbalance in my body that trapped me into what I was feeling in a way that prevented me from releasing the harmful pattern. I've spent little time alone. I was always dating someone. I had a revolving door of relationships. Before I had my own child and before I met the person I ended up having a child with, I decided I needed to learn how to be on my own a little bit more. Don't get all excited thinking that I took a couple of years to do this. No, for me, it was only months of aloneness, which was actually a lot for me. And then I figured out how to build more aloneness into my relationship once one developed. I took a lot of solo trips. I went on retreats, and one time I even went camping on my own. I don't want this to sound like I'm glorifying being alone either. In fact, I think my values point to more interdependence than that. I believe we need each other, and we're better when we have each other. However, when we need something so much, that becomes a problem, and we must try to rework the dynamic so it's more in integrity for each individual within that dynamic. I think this gets really tricky for people in relationships because all sorts of past conditioning are affecting the relationships that we have today. If we're not careful, we will carry forward old patterns that are completely irrelevant to the present time. Have you ever had a sensitive conversation with someone, and in the middle of that conversation, they aren't really looking at you any longer? You see their eyes move, and an emotional response ensues. Perhaps it was a thought that made them angry or gave them some fear that made them pull away or get choked up. If their mind moves from the present moment with you, then were they really even there with you? Or did their eyes take them somewhere else? And this is where the importance of truth and integrity come in. I discovered one day that there were a few events in my life history in which I came away with a different memory of what happened than the other people in the room with me. And I think a certain amount of this is normal because even if we are in the same environment, we may notice different details. If two of us walk in a room, I might be more oriented to see what books are on someone's shelf, whereas if you are redesigning your kitchen, you might be looking more at how the kitchen is laid out in the house and what kinds of pots and pans the person cooks with. We notice different details. That's cool. But there's something else that happens that gives two people in the same room different memories of the situation. And that is because our minds actually can move away from the present moment. I know, it's crazy. Our minds don't just stay fixed on the present moment of what we are experiencing. They go all over the place. They have the potential to do that. They have memories that are invoked. The imagination can get activated. Our understandings are different based on the specific dots we have connected in that moment, and also how out of balance our body is. Even falling asleep will give us a different perception. So let's say you've had a lot of kimchi lately, and oranges, and spicy tomato sauce, and caffeinated drinks, and lots of salt. And say you're doing that at a time of the year or the month in which the intensity typically goes up in nature and in your body anyway. Well, you may be processing information differently than a person who's been eating more cooling and creamy foods. Things coming in from the environment are just going to feel differently to you. Your body is going to pick things up differently. The speed at which information travels through you will be different. Besides what's already in your mind, the state of your body can lead to different understandings. So you may have actually witnessed this mind moving happening to someone else, but it's probably happened to you too, though you may not be aware of it when it happens because you're the one being carried away by your own mind. This is one of the reasons that self-awareness and self-care are so important when you're in a relationship in general, but also when you're in a relationship with someone. You have to do the work of making sure that you are well and able to have integrity in your attention and your perception. Otherwise, your understanding of reality is in jeopardy, and thus any action that springs forth from that understanding. When I learned that minds did this, and in fact that it was a normal byproduct of living in civilization with other people, it made my life so much easier. I was like, oh, I see how minds work. And once I knew how minds work, I could start making sense of my own a bit more. Kind of funny considering I changed my mind about becoming a psychologist because there was just so much focus on the things that were wrong with people. I couldn't find anyone who could tell me how minds actually work. I found that not in a handbook used by psychologists, but in a philosophical text written thousands of years ago in India. You never know what's going to awaken you in life. If you can pay attention to how you feel and notice those thoughts that come up to speak to you, if you notice those moments when your imagination runs wild and really know and be aware that you are doing that is happening to you, then you'll be able to develop greater integrity of awareness. You'll have a more reliable memory, and you'll be in better position to address the inevitable things that come up in your life that make you feel discomfort, hurt, anger, fear, sadness, or some other emotion that doesn't necessarily feel great. This will help in relationships with people and actually anything else in your environment. The study of the dynamics that exist between you and the things outside of you applies to your relationship with food and other sensory inputs too. And you can't control others who might be struggling with their own minds and their own bodies. You can't control others who might be breaking from the present moment too. It's inevitable that it's going to happen to most quote-unquote normal people walking around today. So first cut everybody some slack, starting with yourself, and then extending that to others you're in relationship with, to your friends, your colleagues, etc. Then maybe practice it on some strangers. There's nothing wrong with saying to someone, I noticed your eyebrows really changed then, or I noticed your eyes seemed to go somewhere else. Can you help me understand where you went or what you were thinking or feeling just then? I've had people call me out on that, and while it was really uncomfortable in that first moment to learn that I was doing that, like, oh my God, I had no clue how crazy I am, I was really grateful that someone pointed it out, because once I was aware of it, I could then pay a little more attention to where my attention was. Noticing. It's about the best relationship tool I can think of. Not jumping to conclusions, being curious about the other side, and above all else, valuing the connection, valuing being in the present moment together. In this world, it is so easy to leave the present moment. There are so many distractions, but we don't get anywhere without anyone. And when we leave the present moment to indulge in memories or imagination, we oftentimes just miss what's right in front of us. So don't forget to notice. You and everyone else in your life will be happy that you did. You know, I get so excited. I get this kind of goosebump feeling when I get a booking from a new client that I haven't met yet. And I get so excited because I know that somebody has made a decision to go really, really, really deep into their healing. Because I know that Ayurveda is not a quote unquote normal thing that many people have access to, at least not in the United States where I live. So I know that when someone books with me, that they've really made a decision that they want to go deep into their healing. And so you could do that on my website at heathergrzych.com. That's Heather, GRZYCH.com. You can book me for either a Ayurvedic consultation if you're ready to dive in, or you can also book me for a 15-minute connection call if you're not sure where to go yet. I do have a couple offerings that are not on my website, and we could talk about that. So I look forward to meeting you. Thank you for tuning in and dropping in with us today. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. I really want to hear your feedback. To learn more about my work, visit heathergrzych.com. That's Heather, GRZYCH.com. And meet me here next time on The Wisdom of the Body.